Good evening. This is your host, Dan Zapaski, for the program True Murder, the most shocking killers in true crime history, and the authors that have written about them. We were scheduled to have Stephen Long, the author of Out of Control, the Clara Harris murder case, a very high-profile case of a rich woman running over her husband repeatedly and killing her due to his infidelity. However, I won't go into any explanation. Needless to say, Stephen Long will not be appearing this evening, and we will not be talking about his book, Out of Control. And I apologize to all those that tuned in specifically to listen to Stephen Long. I will use this opportunity to be able to talk about some of the upcoming guests. I have a really special guest next week. In terms of this book, this program is called True Murder, the most shocking killers in true crime history, and very often we do live up to that completely in that title. Some of the most heinous, most shocking, most bizarre, and most horrific crimes are often the subject matter of some of the authors that appear on this program week after week since January. Next week, my special guest, and I've been corresponding with him for quite a few long conversations, imparting some very confidential information and also very interesting and, information that I would not have heard or known about any other way. So I really appreciate the interview that's going to come up next week, and that's with a veteran true crime guy, Jim Fielder, and his book, Slow Death. And the book is called Chamber of Horrors in England, where often the title is changed when it's released in another country. And you might get the idea with the Chamber of Horrors. This person, along with his wife, his partner, his soulmate, created a dungeon, a secret dungeon torture chamber equipped with about $100,000 of innovations and pulleys and all kinds of paraphernalia and torture devices, and an incredible story of again, a man and his wife, even his daughter is involved and is charged and convicted of abduction, along with a friend of the family. So we're seeing 4 people, 2 women, 2 men, hell-bent on torture, kidnapping, abduction, rape, Satanism, rituals. It's an incredible, incredible story. It's called Slow Death. Jim Fielder next week. I have a really good feeling that you will be very impressed with this book and this guest. It's an incredible story. Now, I also wanted to go into the week after that. We will be having a story that American audience might not have heard about necessarily. This is called Runaway Devil: How Forbidden Love Drove a 12-year-old to Murder Her Family, by Robert Remington and Sherry Zickfuss. And these are a couple of journalists in Alberta. And this is an incredible case in Alberta, Canada. And a 12-year-old and her somewhat older boyfriend, and in a crazy case of goth and it's an amazing story. Again, tune in a couple weeks for that. That's going to be a great interview with those people. I also wanted to mention, too, that if anyone heard my program last week with Patricia Springer, she was talking about her book. Let me see. Pardon me. And she is going to, Body Hunter, pardon me, and she is going to be on again in 3 weeks with her book, her new book, Lethal Charmer. We had such a good time with her on the air, and she was a great guest, and she's a good writer and has picked some really good, incredible stories. And so we're going to be doing Lethal Charmer in 3 weeks, and I'll let her explain what that story is about. And also, I would like to talk about now that for those that are listening now and may have listened to the last few shows or have listened to some of the programs, you may not be necessarily tempted to listened to all the programs for various reasons, but I wanted to talk about some of the special programs that have occurred already. Some of the guests that let me, say some good things about them, and maybe if you'd like, go back and listen to these specific interviews, because again, I've been very lucky to be able to talk to authors that don't have a new book coming out right now, that have written a book about 10 or 15 or 20 years ago even. They've been kind enough, knowing that I'm a big fan of their book personally. I don't just skim these books. I read these books, and I'm a big fan of these books, and I like to help promote these books to other readers that love true crime, because there's a lot of okay true crime, and there's a lot of run-of-the-mill true crime, and there's a lot of true crime that is exaggerated, we'll say, the claims on the book, the shocking photos, the incredible story. Some of it's not as interesting as other writers. Some writers are better. Some people have better techniques. But I think that some of these stories are written by very competent, veteran authors, very good authors, but the icing on the cake and the bottom line for true crime fans, I think, like myself, is having an incredible story. So let me go back to the very first program was with Diane Fanning, and she wrote "Baby Me Mine," and this is the shocking true story of a woman accused of murdering a pregnant woman to steal her child. And in this book, this woman succeeds in pawning off a baby that she cut from a pregnant woman's womb. That wasn't so random. This person stalked this person, set up this person, carefully planned this, and cut the baby out of this womb of this mother, and knew enough that to not do it prematurely, knew enough, and you can't, if you listen to the program, you'll find out how on earth this person knew enough to do, the work of an experienced doctor to be able to bring this child to birth, and not kill the child as a result, and also successfully pawn this child off for a certain period of time. So an incredible first debut program I had with Diane Fanning, with her incredible book, Baby Be Mine. Just an incredible story. The next interview I had was with Mr. Don Lasseter, and I'd like to get Don Lasseter back on. He's written, maybe a dozen books for sure. And now I see that he's teaming up with a Ronald E. Bowers, which is a Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, who's a retired district attorney. So what you're getting is obviously, and I spoke to a couple writers in the last few weeks, it looks like to enable themselves to get the kind of incredible access that true crime people are dying for, rather than an overview from the media or reviewing transcripts later. These people, of course, authors, notoriously go to trials, but also to have the kind of inside information, access to very, very expensive transcripts, and to be able to get the privy to the information that makes for a great book by having the great access to the major players in these stories, and also from major players that happen to be retired. So it seems to be almost a rule. Once they are retired, they can give you much more information and are much freer with that information. They're not responsible to the people that are employing them. So Don Lasseter had written, like I say, this book is called Honeymoon with a Killer. He loved her. She loved his money. Honeymoon with a Killer. I haven't read this book yet. I just purchased it. But just from the background information that I got through Amazon, this is going to be another great story. So I won't try to review that for you because, again, I said I haven't written that, but that's what we're going to try to get Don Lasseter on. Now, why I mentioned Don Lasseter, why I'm focusing on him, is because he is author of one of the, I think, true crime classics for his writing, and also for, again, the incredible access, but also for the basic story itself of Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. The notorious, again, it is similar to the other story. These guys, Leonard Lake was the leader, and Leonard Lake was an ex-military guy and sort of a survivalist, and he sold a bit of pot, and he was trying to be off the radar, and he was a hustler. And he had this idea that he would build this secret bunker because his favorite book, the book that most influenced him in his entire life, was called The Collector. And The Collector is a classic book. If you listen to Criminal Minds, you'll hear all kinds of references to it. John E. Fowles, British author, wrote this book. And the way he wrote this book, the book is about a person that collects butterflies and then dreams of maybe collecting something else, a pretty woman. And it starts off very innocent, and this person runs into some money and then really takes his fantasies and his plans and has the means to be able to take and buy a home that's secluded and be able to build this special bunker where he can achieve his fantasy. So he stalks a woman, eyes a woman that he likes, and believes this woman that he would take her in, and in his mind he believes that he will convince her someday to love him, and she will not feel a prisoner of him. So anyway, and it's written in, I say, 56. It's in a book where he does kidnap this woman of his desires, and he does have this special bunker cell where he keeps her. And the book is written from the perspective of the psychopath as he descends into more psychopathy or more madness, or as the story progresses. Half the book is written from her perspective, like a diary, his like diary-esque or memoir-esque as well. So at the time it was an incredible book because of the mindset of somebody wanting to do this, capable of doing this. Now, back to Leonard Lake. Leonard Lake loved this book, but took the ideas and extrapolated them into a bizarre reality, a bizarre future far more violent than this book would even have ever hinted at. His idea is to build a bunker, have sex slaves, keep them in there, torture them, videotape them, of course, for posterity and for thrills and kicks later. So, of course, what is more incredible about one person having this mindset and this philosophy and fantasy, set of sexual fantasy, this person finds someone else that wants to do the same thing, that wants to go along with these kinds of ideas, that shares these same kinds of fantasies, that want to be a partner. So evil partner in crime hooks up with a person named Charles Ng. And then the story has all kinds of twists and turns. But trust me, it's one of the most incredible stories. If you have not heard of it, Charles Ng ends up being a fugitive, running to Canada, meeting the Canadian judicial system, which was for years would not extradite him because in Canada we do not have a death penalty, we do not have capital punishment, so we refrain from extraditing anybody to a state where that state would want to prosecute for and give the death penalty as a sentence. So we held out with California for a few years, and Canada finally relented. There's probably a shift in our government, and Charles Ng was returned. In the interim, he was in a Calgary jail and wrote all kinds of murder diagrams and with captions, and gave quite a bit of information via these horrific murder drawings, and was ratted out on by jailhouse informants. So it had a benefit of this person, at least, them taking some of this evidence and using it to their benefit. This guy, Charles Ng, used every trick in the book, every motion that he could to stall the judicial system, but in the end, justice was served. The other very interesting part of it was Leonard Lake, as soon as he was arrested and he knew the gig was up, killed himself with cyanide. It's an incredible story. Don Lasseter had access to all kinds of information. He takes you right inside these guys. Of course, he's got the transcriptions from the videos themselves, and it's a horror like you wouldn't believe. It's an incredible story. It's called Die for Me. That's Don Lasseter, the true story of Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, which is spelled N-G. So that was the second episode. So go back there and listen to that program. It was my second program, and after a little bit hadn't been on air for a little bit, it was a little bit stiff, but the content of the interview, Just the story itself is just incredible. Now, we've had some guests in the past that were kind of high profile as well. A lady named Sue Russell came on with her program about the book called Lethal Intent. And that was a shocking true story of one of America's most notorious female serial killers, Aileen Wuornos, W-O-U-R-N-O-S. And if you saw American Justice, you would see the true story on Aileen Wuornos and her crimes. Like Sue Russell said in her interview, the movie, which was not based on her book necessarily, but Sue Russell was a very fact-based book that she wrote, Lethal Intent. They twisted the story, of course, and Hollywood had to make characters really do things that in real life they did not. So they take a potentially true story and make it fiction, really. Nobody really says that, but really it ends up being a fictional account because it's actually not a true account. But this is the movie I'm referring to. It's called Monster with Charlize Theron. And you know what's interesting about it is when you do see the American Justice special, when you see the original Aileen Wuornos and you see Charlize Theron, hopefully I'm mispronouncing this, Charlene Theron, she looks incredibly like, with makeup and an incredible makeover, to look just like this serial killer Aileen Wuornos. It's quite the transformation. So I thought that was quite interesting. But the interview with Sue Russell, and that was from England, so she was good enough to spend the money to be able to, she's a British author, but she called from Los Angeles, where she is now working. But she was kind enough in her busy schedule as a full-time journalist to come on and talk about her book. Again, it's many, many years old, but it's called Lethal Intent. And it's a great book, and it's a hefty book too. It's 500 pages. But the story of this American serial killer and her lesbian lover, and this woman killing 8 or 9 men after robbing them, but again, it's a really good book to find out the psychopathic mind, because this is one of those classic psychopaths. Thought that she was doing the world a favor, thought she'd be recognized as a martyr for what she had done. Once that realization was dashed, once she was arrested and she knew that was not happening, then it was all about that little bit of 15 minutes of fame. There were some people that were interested in her case. There were some people that were interested in her. It was, again, it's an incredible story, incredible trial. And it's one of those things that, again, I'm trying to put some of the more classic serial killer, true crime stories ever written, because really, true crime, really, the capital of true crime, the world's capital, is America. The strangest, most charismatic, bizarre, interesting, prolific. There have been other serial killers in all kinds of other countries. We've got some really interesting ones here in Canada, but America beats everybody. I'm not going to comment why that might be, but it definitely is a phenomenon in the world. I'm sure that other countries, though, will catch up. And so we have Lethal Intent by Sue Russell. Listen to that program. That was one of the earlier programs as well. I'm not sure when, maybe a couple months ago, but it was a great program. I had a great time interviewing the very funny and very prolific and dead-on true crime author, Burl Barer, B-A-R-E-R, Edgar Award-winning author, with his book Body Count, the terrifying true story of the Spokane serial killer. And the classic, my favorite, true crime author of all time, Jack Olson, who's now deceased, the author of I, the Creation of the Serial Killer, wrote, Burl Barer writes true crime at its best. And this is the story of the Spokane serial killer, and his name is Robert Lee Yates, Y-A-T-E-S, Jr. And this is an incredible story. Unlike some psychopathic killers, this is one of those serial killers that really nobody would ever guess. And so a lot of these guys, BTK, this Yates, there are quite a few serial killers as well that have really blend into society. Maybe they're church pastors or Boy Scout leaders or family, their wife claims that it was a good marriage and they were good parents and a good husband. So there are a certain amount of those people, definitely, that, again, that's not surprising to me, but this is one of those serial killers in Spokane. I think he's got he had 4 or 5 convictions and about 10 suspected murders, so a very prolific serial killer as well. Great story. Burl Bear was good enough to come on my program. He's a big author. He's got about 5 or 6 true crime books now. He's got a new one. I'm going to have him on very soon, about a mother that convinces her children to kill. And so I'm going to have him on soon. He was good enough to have me on his fantastic program. It's a big, high-profile program called Outlaw Radio. I sincerely suggest anybody that listens to this program who would enjoy this program. You'll enjoy Outlaw Radio Saturday afternoons and on archive on demand. Burl Bear with Don Woodman, and Don Woldman, sorry. And it's a great program being broadcast out of Los Angeles, and he mixes it up with a program called True Crimes, and then after that, when I listened to the program, he had a great band from California, an acoustic band, playing in the studio called Beat Farmers. Great, Burl switches right from serious to humor, all in the same paragraph or the same sentence. The guy's great, very entertaining program, very funny, and a great interviewer, and a great program, very entertaining. And in the third hour, legendary radio guy comes in, personality, Shadow Stevens, who does the intro for Craig Ferguson now, who's done so much stuff. He's like the Ryan Seacrest and way beyond of Hollywood and Los Angeles and American TV and radio. A very, very recognizable face and very, very recognizable radio voice, radio legend. Shadow Stevens was in there for the third hour. I had a great time. I had a blast being on the show. They did great promo on their website, Outlaw Radio. Burl Bear has his own website, and he posts programs on there as well. So Burl Bear, we're going to have him on. His book, Body Count, check out that program, Body Count, Burl Bear. Great program. Had a lot of fun doing that. Another great interview was with Maura Martingale. And Martingale, if you're looking at how to spell that, Martingale. And it was Cannibal Killers. Includes the world's most evil psychopaths, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Gein, and Andrei Chikatilo, with 8 pages of harrowing photographs. These, on the book it says, there are no ordinary killers. They are monsters who murder, mutilate, and carry out the most gruesome, unimaginable act of all, eating the flesh of their victims. So Maura is a psych major and decided to do this book. She's a great author. This is an amazing, it's not a dry tale at all. It's incredible. She gives you the history of cannibalism, and you'd be surprised. And in some countries where it was more prevalent at a much later date, then you'd be very, very surprised. We're talking about Japan. Incredible story about a gentleman in Japan, a rich person who was convicted of eating a woman and then became a cause celeb in Japan after that, appearing on talk shows. Spent a very, very small amount of time, or very little time, in an institution, and his father, being rich and influential, had him released, and then he became this celebrity based on the fact that he would talk about eating the flesh. And they regarded him as a very, I guess, cavalier artist with his honesty and his poetry and his talk of cannibalism. Incredible. So that was Maura Martingale, and one of the earliest shows that I did, I believe, Cannibal Killers. Really check this out, because she goes into her research on Jeffrey Dahmer. Ed Gein is an amazing, you probably have heard of this guy, and Andrei Chikatilo, the Russian serial killer cannibal. incredible case too. This is a story that I didn't know about at around the same time that I read Silence of the Lambs and I was blown away. A few months later, Jeffrey Dahmer gets convicted of things that I thought were incredible in a movie. And then about 6 months later, unbeknownst to me, because I really wasn't following it at that time in the 80s, Andrei Chikatilo is going to trial in Russia for almost 50 murders, cannibalism. It's one of the most incredible stories and most incredible killers. Chikatilo, Chikatilo. You can always go to Crime Library and find out who some of these people are if you're interested. But it gives the history of cannibalism and crime, some of the cultural, the psychology behind it, the anthropology behind it. This is an incredible book, incredible read, very, very easy, very, very entertaining. And it's been a true crime classic for years and years. I keep seeing this in the bookstore. I bought a copy originally that was used, and I've seen this book all over the place. It's really fantastic. And Maura Martingale was good enough to be able to call into the show in New Jersey from England on her own expense. So it was very, very nice for her to do that. And she has a website that's completely different. It offers getaways, vacation getaways, and a comprehensive, not a bed and breakfast, but a comprehensive getaway that includes a holistic, incredible. Just go to French House Party, one word, and check this out. It's in Europe. They provide all kinds of details. It sounds like a fantastic getaway. Just an amazing rekindling of your energy through this really positive getaway that she has, French House Party. She said that she needed, to do something that was completely different from something like this, which is very serious. And really, from my own experience, it does affect you somewhat to always deal with the worst of humanity, the most heinous of crimes, and always true crime is really never a true, really a happy story or a happy ending. So I think she's providing a very good balance. So that's Maura Martingale, M-O-I-R, Maura Martingale, Cannibal Killers. Check out that program. It's great. And check out her website, French House Party. It's very, very interesting. Now, we also have had Nick Prawn. He's become a friend of mine. Nick Prawn is from Toronto. He's a veteran, over 35 years with the Toronto Star, and a major newspaper in Canada's biggest city, Toronto. And so he's been around. He's got a true crime book called True Crime, and he also has a book. It's a real classic because it's an incredible story, and it's just he had access. He was in the courtroom. He was one of the few journalists in the world that had access because of Canadian publication bans. They were afraid of Americans not listening to the rule that was outlaid by the judge that to not repeat any of the information that they witnessed at the trial. So to make things easier, they just simply banned American journalists at certain parts of the trial. So select Canadian journalists were the only ones that had access to this really one of the most incredible trials in the history of true crime, in the history of the world, and, well, absolutely Canada for sure. If you don't know about Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, if you haven't heard about this Barbie and Ken killer, torture, rape couple here, incredible story by virtue of the videotapes. Again, the videotapes that were actually found after being directed by Paul Bernardo. The police searched the home, knew there was videotapes or suspected that there was videotapes, did not find the videotapes in weeks of searching. Paul Bernardo, the killer, told his lawyer where to go to get those tapes. The lawyer obtained those tapes and withheld them, severely, indefinitely, unequivocally altering the course of that case and providing the opportunity for Carla Homolka, excuse me, who by all accounts was a co-partner in this, to be able to despite the 4 murders and rape, including the rape and accidental death of her sister, her own sister, that she offered up as a virginal Christmas present to her fiancé to rape and videotape as a Christmas present. This person walked out of prison after 12 years, acquitted charged only with manslaughter. Excuse me. Sorry. So it's an incredible story. Nick Prawn, Lethal Marriage. Check out that program in the archives. It's an incredible story that you definitely have not heard enough about if you have not read one of the books. There are about 4 books about the case itself. Any of them is incredible as far as I know, since the first 2, Invisible Darkness and Carla, were written by a journalist named Stephen Williams. So if you pick up Nick Prawn, Lethal Marriage, listen to the program on my radio station, you'll get the definitive interview about someone that was right there for one of the most incredible trials that's ever taken place in true crime history. Oh, pardon me. I'm very sorry for that. Now, there have been some other programs that have been quite notable, and I was very excited to have a guest named Philip Carlo, The Life and Crimes of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Now, this is absolutely, by anybody's standard, one of the all-time true crime classics. Again, because the Night Stalker is such an incredibly evil man, and charismatic as well. It's part of this book is the incredible allure of this killer with women after he was convicted of these incredible murders of old ladies and young women, and senseless, random, brutal, vicious, merciless killings. And yet, he had a legion of women, beautiful women, models, sensible women, reasonable women, exotic women, women that wanted to marry him. He was married in prison. And Philip Carlo was at that wedding ceremony, and also includes in the book that I have the exclusive death row interview with a Night Stalker. This book is, again, about 600 pages. It is incredible. Philip Carlo interview is a little bit hard, I'll warn you right now, to listen to, because Philip Carlo has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and so he has oxygen to maintain his health. It's a very degenerative disease. He was good enough to come on the program, and I could hear him on the telephone. It was very, very, very difficult. He really, there just is, you don't have enough volume on, because of his lack of breathing, and because oxygen is being provided to him to be able to speak whatsoever. And the Blog Talk Radio situation doesn't have any, I don't think any, well, it's robotic, so I don't think anyone is there to be able to adjust that volume, use a compressor and limiter to be able to boost that volume up to a normal range. And when you do turn it up, it's a bit annoying because, of course, there's an imbalance between my level and his level. But if you were to, he really has so much to talk about, and he's such a great guest. I really didn't get much of a word wise in. So if you really want to hear a great interview from Philip Carlo, the definitive story, it's just an amazing. And he promised to come on the program and talk very, very candidly, and he did. He also has written incredible stories about the mob. He grew up right next door to a mobster. And grew up right there in the thick of things in New Jersey there, I think in Bensonhurst. I may be wrong. But anyway, he has the access to these gangsters, these mobsters. And so because he's lived the nitty-gritty life, because he has that access, and because he has that respect from these people, was able to convince Philip Carlo was able to convince Richard Ramirez to agree to an interview, and that is where Philip Carlo was able to write this incredible book.
you get in the mind of this Night Stalker, and you're scared for a long time. It never leaves your mind. You've seen his face. You see his face on the cover. You see the face in the book, and it just grips you. This book is fantastic. It's a true crime classic, like many of the books I have. If you want to start somewhere, though, Night Stalker, incredible. It's, again, for a lot of people that are coming on to true crime, I hate to sound like, hey, geez, the 70s and the 80s was the classic of these serial killers, but there really was. When you look at Bundy, and you look at John Wayne Gacy, and you look at the Night Stalker, and you look at some of these guys, it's, I hate to say it was sort of a golden age, because these people were sort of the pioneers that all these other people are being influenced by, I believe. And when you talk about Bundy and Gacy and Dahmer and Richard Ramirez, hopefully no one, I say hopefully, it wouldn't surprise me if someone, if I was wrong, but hopefully nobody tops these guys. Nobody outdoes these guys. Anyway, Philip Carlo, if you can struggle through the interview with the volume, it is a great interview. It's a fantastic interview. So we've had Linda Rosenkrantz with Captain Edward Lee with her book Ripper. That was a very interesting story. We have had, again, Patricia Springer, Body Hunter. And like I say, next week, Slow Death with Jim Fielder, and Runaway Devil with Robert Remington and Sherry Zickfoos. A Canadian story near Calgary in Alberta. Forbidden love drove a 12-year-old to murder her family with her boyfriend. Incredible story. So I want to use this last few minutes, I guess, to talk about Trophy Kill. I'm not sure if we've had anybody that attempted to call in. It looks like, no, we have not. We've got about 22 minutes. If anybody were listening and would like to call in, you would need to just, what's the number to call in here? 347-237-4064. But anyways, anyone's looking at the screen will know the call-in number. My book, Trophy Kill, was released on April 19th. I hate to be a shameless self-promoter, but that's what I do, part of what I do. TrophyKill.tv, if you are interested. I just posted a new video. This is the video that actually chronicles the trial. A broadcasting company, a national broadcasting company in Canada here called CTV, broadcast the entire trial, covered it twice daily. There was some footage that was that I recorded, and there was some footage that was on the website, still on the website and accessible. We took that footage, and the people behind the Trophy Kill, the first video, Trophy Kill, The Trial and Revelations of a Psychopathic Killer. It was released 2 years ago in May, and that video has garnered about 20,000 views. If people were to go to YouTube and look up Trophy Kill, they'd be able to find that video, or if you were to punch in Shall We Dance, the Shall We Dance murder, if you were to punch in The Trial and Revelations of a Psychopathic Killer, if you were to put Trophy Kill or Shall We Dance murder, you'll be able to see now two videos on YouTube. One that was posted a couple years ago, very, very creative. I originally had, the rough idea for one of the chapter samples, and used that and narrated the video, which is 7.5 minutes long, narrated it like it was a chapter sample for people that were listening to the video and watching the video would also hear the narration from the actual text from the first chapter of the book at that time. Now the chapters have changed. The text is different. It's the chapters is different than it was, but you can still listen and watch the video. It's an incredible video. It was done with Dan Caldwell directing and editing, and Dino Scavone a couple guys that are working in the film business here in Winnipeg, really talented guys, a lot of experience in documentaries. So we've put this together. I'm the minor player in this, but these have been incredible videos. The original one that's been posted, that about 20,000 people or more have seen, is created a little bit of an uproar at the trial. The district attorney, Crown attorney, was not too happy to know that I was very active in the promotion of the trial itself, for people to know that the trial was actually occurring, that the trial was coming up, that this was the story, and that I wanted to let as many people worldwide know about this story in the first place, and maybe get their attention for them to follow the trial. Now, for those that did follow the trial, that's great, but the trial broadcasts talked about the website, talked about the book. It was first and foremost as a subject in the media right from the first day. The letters that the killer wrote me, the diagrams that the killer sent me. I testified in the second week. In that same week, the killer was forced to testify or wished to testify. The book contains those actual trial transcripts, which are unusual. Usually people cannot afford thousands of dollars for the trial transcripts. And through some circumstances, I didn't pay thousands of dollars, but I paid a certain fee, and it was feasible for me to put them in the book and desirable for me to put those in the book. So a unique aspect of this book is those actual trial transcripts. Getting back to the video itself, the Shall We Dance Murder, which you can go to YouTube or any of your favorite video sites, Daily Motion, Motion Box, Current, Vidler, all kinds of, it's on about 20 different websites, video sharing websites. If you do see the video and you do like the video at all, please share it. If you do like the video and are impressed with it at all, or if you're not, you have some criticism of it, please leave a comment. I'd be, very appreciative of any input whatsoever. The thing is that now we have the first video, like I say, which will almost be now a collector's item. One interesting aspect of that video was we did rent the actual murder room. We were able to go back to that hotel and rent the actual room that Robin Green Jr. was killed in, and butchered, dismembered, and displayed and posed, reassembled after he was dismembered. We rented that original murder room, and were able to do and film in that room. And I think it has that power when you watch the original video. Of course, Dan Caldwell's excellent work in the editing, the adding of the really eerie and appropriate music. It's a great video. It's very, very entertaining. I've had people say they've watched it dozens and dozens of times. It is a real mini piece of work, of art. It's a documentary, but a documentary makes it sound like, that sounds boring and dry, and maybe not something would be very exciting. This guy takes this and takes it to another level. It's very, very entertaining. It's scary, actually. Now, quite a while ago, about a year ago, I got Dan to make another video. And this was information from the letters, some of the most horrific information that's imparted in the letters that was admissible, crucial evidence at the trial, that the jury got to see, the judge decided was true, that the district attorney, the Crown attorney, the prosecutor utilized effectively to determine the truth in this, to establish his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but also to have the jury and the judge recommend 25 years before parole eligibility. Now, given those letters and given the comments that the judge made, given the diagrams which depict the murder and the necrophilia and the just complete lack of any empathy towards this victim whatsoever. It's not lack of remorse. It's reveling. It is enjoyment. It's the sheer enjoyment in recalling the butchering, dismemberment, dissection, necrophilia, and organ removal. So what I did was take a small excerpt of that, narrated it, tried to do a very, very dispassionate voice. I don't have Sidney's voice, but again, I think it captures the horror of the actual words that he has written that are outlaid in my book, Trophy Kill. Now, the diagrams have been used in this video as well. So we have the diagrams, 13 diagrams. Some of the most bizarre and horrific, shocking. If diagrams can shock, these shock. The words combine, and the music, and the clever, ingenious, and brilliant editing and creation of this video. It's about 1 minute and 45 seconds. Now, due to the terms of service of these video sharing sites, I'm going to have to pick select sites to put this video on. Even on the website, which it will be put on shortly, there has to be a very, very explicit warning for people that are under a certain age, 18, to not watch this video, or anybody that may be prone to being shocked. I swear to God, it may sound like, oh, he's trying to hype this thing. I guarantee you, if anybody reads this book and says, well, you know, that's not the most shocking true crime story, man, I'll take your book back. I'll take your book back, no problem. But anyway, these videos, watch for these videos. Because me telling you my book is incredible is one thing. Watching the videos and showing and seeing some of the characters. Now, for the first time in this video, we actually get to see some of the players. The lawyer, which has tried more murder cases than anybody else in the English-speaking world, which is about 700 murders. It's about 70 years old, this guy. So that's who you're seeing. The most experienced murder trial lawyer in the English-speaking world. You're also seeing the district attorney, crown attorney, we call him in Canada. You're seeing the killer himself. You're seeing the victim. You're seeing one of the main characters, which happens to be myself, being the star witness at the trial. You're seeing the CTV broadcasters, the various broadcasters involved in telling the story, and the broadcaster was there witnessing the story and broadcasting it later to the public. You have all the locations. You have, again, it's not as creative as the other video, but it's a video that's very, very dramatic and powerful and very, very informative. And I think if I can invite anybody to do anything, is just watch those videos. See what you think. If you like them, please share. Please share this. I would very greatly appreciate it. This is a story that a lot of people, even in the center that I'm in, of 700 and something thousand people, they're just not aware of this story. So if you are impressed with this story, if you do happen to watch the videos, look for the videos. I'm going to give the same keywords. The Shall We Dance murder should get you to these videos. Trophy Kill, I may, again, Trophy Kill is the full name of the book. Trophy Kill, The Shall We Dance Murder. So, not to confuse people, to make it easy, the website's trophykill.tv. You can see the original video on the website. You can also read the original newspaper articles about the trial itself and before the trial, when the jewelry Susan Sarandon's gold necklace was found at the murder scene, at this scene of this horrific murder horror spectacle. Sidney Terhune walked into the police station on July 2nd, claiming that he had woken from a drunken blackout to find his acquaintance dead in the bathtub. When police went to the hotel, they found Robin Green Jr. cut into 8 pieces, decapitated, disemboweled, his legs and his arms cut off, castrated, one eyeball missing, the other one deflated, his nipple cut off, his arm partially dissected, but all of the victim's internal organs, everything that would be in a body cavity, a chest cavity, everything, think of it, lungs, liver, esophagus, windpipe, intestines, everything, heart, the heart, everything gone. Gone. The body, where the head was cut off, he reassembled the body like some kind of freakish scarecrow from hell to scare these police officers, to blow their minds, to traumatize them for life. And then claimed, nonchalantly, calmly, I passed out, and when I woke up, there was the body. I don't remember anything. On July 1st, Susan Sarandon had reported her gold necklace stolen from the movie set of Shall We Dance, which was being filmed in Winnipeg at that time. And like I say, the next day, Sidney walked into the courthouse, into the police station and said, I think I killed somebody, I chopped them up. All calm. Very, very calm. Susan Sarandon's gold necklace and other jewelry was found a few feet away from this horror spectacle. July 2nd was also the day he was adopted when he was just a few weeks old into a white family. He's Aboriginal. Into a Caucasian family, white family, non-Aboriginal. He claims there was physical, sexual abuse. He claims, but definitely he wanted to enact revenge on his adopted family who had ignored him. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to enact revenge. And so on July 2nd, the anniversary of Sidney Tierhuis becoming Sidney Tierhuis, he walked into a police station to report this horror. Soon after, he granted interviews to one of the newspapers called the Winnipeg Sun, the only newspaper that really cared. And I don't think they had to go out of their way. This guy wanted to talk, which is unusual. Usually they lawyer up. Any lawyer in their right mind would say, do not talk to the media. He was granting interviews saying, I'm not a monster. I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. Smiling for the cameras. I had an opportunity a few months later through a strange turn of events to be able to correspond with him. And over that year period of time, the only thing I went in there with was that I believed that he could remember, and I believed in my heart of hearts that he would tell me. I also knew right from the beginning, from the go-between, we'll say, that facilitated this interview with him, facilitated this working relationship to write a book together about his life, his crimes, the day in question. This person was able to convince Sidney that I could be trusted, and in the process, Sidney Tierhuis gave me all the information about his past. He's a very eloquent writer. That's why his writing is included in the book. He's a good writer. He's psychopathic, and you will see the psychopathic mind. And then you will get to the letters. I call them the dreaded letters. You will read stuff that you have never imagined any human can be capable of saying, let alone doing. He didn't have to say this. There is no good reason to talk like this. There is none. It's an incredible book. It's my journey through the judicial system. Unlike a lot of cases in America and other jurisdictions in the world, we do not start. You might think if you're a true crime buff, you would think that some of the information I've given you anyway, and especially when you read the book, there's certainly enough information in the U.S. to pursue this case easily as murder one, a murder conviction that would see likely them get a death penalty in certain states, or certainly life without any chance of parole. Instead, in Canada, we are starting with a second-degree murder conviction as the best-case scenario. The alternative is manslaughter, but we don't have 3 degrees of manslaughter, we only have 1. And that 1 degree of manslaughter allows for a life sentence, but due to precedent and the courts saying that they want to follow precedents, then we're looking at about what would be given about a 7-year sentence. However, this has just been revoked in Canada. What killers would do likely is that they would not get bail anyway due to their danger, them being dangerous, would not be able to get bail because of the conditions are not as considered harsh compared to a correctional center. Really, it's not harsh. It's that there's no programs, there's no ability to rehabilitate. There are access to less, I would say, intimate visits, would say. So anyway, because the government cannot get a trial, a murder to trial in a year or 2, this person sits without bail, as they would not receive bail, and they would be given double credit for the time they spent in pretrial custody. So a typical murder trial would take at least 3 years. That would count as 6. The person would be out on the street in time served, or very, very close. So you're dealing with a 3 to 4 year sentence in total. Excuse me. Pardon me. So since this is, it's not a matter of sentencing people, and that is going to help make sure that they don't do this again, it's a matter of there are certain people, especially anybody that reads true crime, there are certain people that absolutely should remain behind bars the rest of their life for the sake of the public safety itself. So I think that's what we're dealing with is in the trial that I'm involved with. It's not a matter of, is he going to get the death penalty or is he life without parole? This person could have walked the streets very well, according to Canadian law, because the person claimed that he was intoxicated and did not have the necessary intent to kill. The government has to prove that this person had the necessary intent to kill, and alcohol over and over and over again necessitates, for some reason, the district attorney, the crown attorney, the prosecutor, to lower the sentence or the charge to manslaughter, and then a resultant short sentence. So we do have people that will continue to kill again and be violent again due to these extremely short sentences, and also the lack of recognition that I think Americans have had in the last bunch of years that being soft on crime doesn't do anything, and there are certain people that definitely, absolutely need to be locked up forever. You've been listening to the program True Murder, the most shocking killers in true crime history, and the authors that have written about them. Join me next week, like I say, for Jim Fielder with Slow Death, an incredible program next week. Thanks for listening this week if you bothered to do that, and please go back into the archives because I've got some incredible guests that have already been on the program that you may have missed, and please check them out. You will not be disappointed. I'm going to have some great guests in the future, but I've had some great guests in the past. Have yourself a good evening. Good night.